though the pressures of life,
oh Lord,
seems to weigh you down, and you don't know which way to turn, God is concerned and is working it out for you.
church bitches! In 7 days, which isn't much, lady. If the dear Lord could create earth and heaven and light and continents, let me finish an ocean and wind.
This is part 2 again of the letter to Mrs. Frances Reynolds Keyser, May 20th, 1908, and this is from Hubert Henry Harrison's diary, and from the book A Hubert Harrison Reader. It's an excellent book, and I would recommend anyone to go out and buy it. All right, part 2. It was what I came to, but in the meanwhile, time, the great healer, closed the wound, and I began to live again eternally. But I now had a new belief, agnosticism. I said belief. What I did mean was philosophy of life, point of observation, attitude towards things. You must have one, you know, or you will cease to live. Well, at first, the great stumbling block was the personality of Jesus. Volney's pious fraud explanation couldn't do for me. For I lived in the 20th century when comparative mythology had more rational explanations to offer. The power of his personality haunted me for a long time, but in the end, that also went. Now, I am an agnostic, not a dogmatic disbeliever, nor a pompous and narrow infidel. I am not at all of Colonel Robert G. Ingersoll's school, and it gives me the keenest pleasure to engage in dialectic with vulgarian infidels who assume the name of agnostic without knowing what it means. If I am to explain myself by another, I would say that I am in mental attitude such an agnostic as Thomas Huxley was, and my principles are the same. But I have been so genuinely interested in the basis of religion that I have tried to keep in touch with it all along the line. Christian apologetics, ecclesiastics, history, higher criticism. I have been into all of them. And I would need but a little more reading, I fancy, to qualify for clerical honors. I wish to admit something that most agnostics are unwilling to admit. I would pay a tribute to the power of that religion which was mine. It is only fair to confess that reason alone has failed to satisfy all my needs. For there are needs not merely ethical but spiritual, inspirational, what I would call personal dynamics. And these also must be filled. So I have often felt a hungering after the flesh pots of Egypt. I do not necessarily commit myself to belief in immortality or any allied doctrine when I say that the soul yearns for the support of something. Scientifically, of course, I translate this as the power of inherited adaptabilities manifesting themselves in the sphere of psychology even as it does in the sphere of biology, zoology. And rationally, I believe the scientific explanation to be the correct one. And yet, shall we stunt the soul by refusing to develop it in any one direction while conceding the necessity for development in all other directions? Precisely because I am agnostic, I object to this limitation. Now, if it can be shown that any given belief or set of beliefs can develop the spiritual side of man, why should we refuse the aid of the belief because it corresponds with fact, cannot be demonstrated? So much for Christianity in general. Now for Catholicism in particular, not long after the historical impulse came to me, I busied myself to find out what was the actual objective conditions under which Christianity originated. I had already reached a point in my bias, and in addition to literary, I had now a scientific, or if you like, an evolutionary interest. I began, as usual, to work back from the Reformation, helped by the translation and reprints from original sources of European history, which Mr. James Harvey Robinson of Columbia has edited for the University of Pennsylvania. Although my researches were comparatively superficial, I managed to strike the right road. Many beliefs and types of thought and feeling inexplicably bound up with the orderly development of Christianity, but repudiated by the Protestants, were made clear to me. But it was when I had got as far back as the 4th and 3rd centuries that I really saw, using the Council of Nicaea, the Council of Nicaea, as a suspension point. I sprang alternately backwards as far as Irenaeus and forward to the Council of Antioch. And when I had dug into the mine of religious history, I came back to our day, gathering the different strands as I came. I'm going to stop here and continue into part 3.